My question is, when users reach the level of radicalization that violates your community standards, you often will ban those groups and you then drive them off to other platforms. Those platforms tend to have less transparency and oversight. But the issue that I'd like you to address is for those individuals that remain on your platform, they're often far down the path of radicalization, but they are definitely looking for an outlet. And I understand that Facebook has recently adopted a strategy to redirect users who are searching, for example, for election misinformation. But it doesn't seem that that policy applies to budding violent extremists. Mr. Zuckerberg, do you believe that the platform has your platform has a responsibility to off-ramp users who are on the path to radicalization by violent extremist groups?
Senator, thanks for the question. I think this is very important. And my understanding is that we actually do a little of what you're talking about here. If people are searching for, I think, for example, white supremacist organizations, of which we ban those, we treat them as terrorist organizations. Not only are we not going to show that content, but I think we try to, where we can, highlight information that would be helpful, and I think we try to work with experts on that. I can follow up and get you more information on the scope of those activities and when we invoke that. But I certainly agree with the spirit of the question that this is a good idea and something that we should continue pursuing and perhaps expand.
Well, I appreciate those comments. I'm the ranking member on Senate Homeland Security Committee, and what we're seeing is a rise of violent extremist groups, which is very troubling. And certainly we need to work very closely with you as to how do we disrupt this kind of radicalization, especially folks that are using your platform. So I appreciate the opportunity to work further. And as we talked about last night, you asserted that Facebook is proactively working with law enforcement now to disrupt some of these real-world violent attempts that stem from some of that activity that originated your platform. Could you tell me specifically how many threats that you have proactively referred to local or state law enforcement prior to being approached for a preservation request?
Senator, I don't know the number off the top of my head, so I can follow up with you on that. But it is increasingly common that our systems are able to detect when there's potential issues. And over the last 4 years in particular, we've built closer partnerships with law enforcement and the intelligence community to be able to share those kind of signals. So we're doing more of that, including in the case that you mentioned before around the attempted kidnapping of Governor Whitmer. We identified that as a signal to the FBI. I think it was about 6 months ago when we started seeing some suspicious activity on our platform, and there's certainly that's part of our routine and how we operate.
Well, Mr. Zuckerberg, discovery tools and recommendation algorithms that your platforms use does serve up potentially extremist content based on the user profiles of folks. As we seek to understand why membership in these extremist groups is rising, I would hope that your companies are right now engaging in some forensic analysis of membership once you take down an extremist group to take a look at how that happened on your platform. It's certainly going to better inform us as to how we can disrupt this type of recruitment into extremist groups. My question for you, though, is that in 2016, you said, and this was apparently an internal Facebook internal document that was reported by the Wall Street Journal, that said that 64% of members of violent groups became members because of your platform's recommendation. And I'll quote from that report that was reported in the Wall Street Journal. It said, "Our recommendation systems grow the problem." That's clearly very concerning. And I know in response to that report in 2016, you had made changes to your policies. You made changes to some of the algorithms that existed at that time. My question is, have you seen a reduction in your platform's facilitation of extremist group recruitment since those policies were changed?
Senator, I'm not familiar with that specific study, but I agree with the concern. And making sure that our recommendation systems for what groups people are given the opportunity to join is certainly one important vector for addressing this issue. And we've taken a number of steps here, including disqualifying groups from being included in our recommendation system at all if they routinely are being used to share misinformation, or if they have content violations, or a number of other criteria. So I'm quite focused on this. I agree with where you're going with that question. I don't have any data today on the real world impact of that yet, but I think that addressing this upstream is very important.
So I appreciate you agreeing with that, and that we need more data. Is it that you don't have the data just at the top of your head, or that it doesn't exist?
Well, Senator, certainly the former, and potentially the latter as well. I think it probably takes some time after we make these changes to be able to measure the impact of it. And I'm not aware of what studies are going on into this. This seems like the type of thing that one would want not just internal Facebook researchers to work on, but also potentially a collaboration with independent academics as well.